So the trouble with our pigeons, and you can see from this one, is they are show-offs and they're always playing court to each other. This one is trying to look good for the cameras. And we've got a long roof space, and unfortunately they sit on top of the roof, and they might as well write restaurant, come and get served on the top of the roof, because that's what happened. The sparrowhawk comes and he knocks them down off the roof and then unfortunately attacks them. And then one day I went out and I saw a pile of feathers and some blood and presumed she'd been successful in taking one away. 3 days later, this pigeon, this female pigeon who I thought was sitting on her nest, I picked her up because I was just a bit worried. She'd been sitting there a bit of a long time. And she had the most horrendous wound under her wing. And by that time, of course, the wound had gone septic as well. And I was sort of flying by wire because I didn't quite know if she was going to keep going, because the wound was so horrible. It was deep and very badly infected. So in case this ever happens to you, I'm going to show you what I did. And as I say, it was a bit of an experiment, but it worked. The first thing I noticed was that the pigeon was still eating. I put down some grain for her and she came and ate it. So she was okay, but the wound was just horrendous. So the only thing I could think of was green clay, which I use a lot. If there's any bleeding on an animal, I put dry clay on it and that stops the bleeding immediately, and it also seals the wound. I used also some extract of grapefruit seed, and I mixed my clay up with mineral water, and then I put 3 drops of the grapefruit seed extract in it, and I just packed it into the hole in her side. That's all I could think of doing. So if you've never used clay before, I'll just give a bit of a demonstration now. I've got a slight cut on my finger from Rose, so I'll use it for that. Never add clay to water because it's really difficult to work out the volumes. It's much better to start with the clay and add the water afterwards. And also remember, because the clay works on toxins, it's better not to put any in, so use the purest water you can find. I mean, this is mineral water, but unless you've got really good tap water, I wouldn't use that. So mix it to a paste. That's probably enough. I'm only using a small amount at the moment, just to demonstrate. And then what I did for my pigeon, and I'm going to do now, is I mixed a little of this grapefruit seed extract. All I put in for the, I made a large amount of clay which would pack the whole wound. It was a very deep wound, and I put 3 drops. I'm only going to put 1 now of this in. It's a very strong natural antibiotic, and it's used to treat MRSA, so it's very strong. Well, that was my first emergency treatment, and then of course the clay dried, and normally when the clay dries, you take it off, but I just was so worried about doing that, and they might reopen the wound. And also that was just day 1, and really I didn't expect that to completely clear up the infection. So what I did was I got in contact with my sister, who I know has dealt with wounds on her cattle, and she told me to put tea tree essential oil directly onto the wound. I told her it was still basically an open wound apart from the clay, and she said, well, tea tree, and it's true that tea tree is one that can be used directly on animals and pure as well. It's one of the few essential oils you can do that with. So what I did was I was able to run, I was only going to use 3 drops, that's the maximum really you should use on an animal this size, and I just put 1 or 2 drops actually on the clay so it would be absorbed through the clay, and then I was just able to get 1 drop down the side, and I did this for 3 days, and after that all the smell of the infection had gone away. So I sort of got a bit panicky about this clay, thinking, well, I should take it off, and not knowing how to do it because I was really worried that I might open the wound up again. And it became fait accompli because she actually did it herself, which I was very pleased about. She just pecked the clay off. And this has left her with just this scab, which is probably about 1/5 of the size of the wound. I mean, I'm amazed. All this was, it was just like a great big horrible hole. And it's all seemingly, you can see how pink and clean all that flesh is now, all that skin. So there's just that, and I'm just going to leave that, and that'll just naturally get better. I'm not giving her any treatment now. In fact, essential oils, you only really do 5 treatments, so that would be for 5 days, and I only really had to do for 3 days. And you can see she's looking fine now. I've been keeping her in the greenhouse, and I've been putting another pigeon in with her now and again. One thing that was really sweet was that while she had her clay on her and she was out in the garden in a little run, because it was quite warm weather then, her mate, the blue pigeon, actually came and sat with her every day. So I think that was part of the treatment, really. So I just hope this has helped you if you've got pigeons, or this can happen to a hen, or any bird actually that you've got. They can be attacked like this, and a really bad wound, as long as your pigeon or bird is eating and it's not in pain, then I'd really have a go at doing this.